So do we have a quorum?
Counting now. Yes.
Great. Well, it's 6:30. Why don't we begin? Welcome everybody to this gloomy
Mhm.
evening. Hopefully, we don't get any major flooding damage. It's certainly been raining all day. Um, First item, are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, then we'll go through introductions and I'll call out the various municipalities, starting with Alberg Town.
Alex McCracken for Albert Town.
Okay, nobody from Alberg Village, Bakersfield.
Hi, Bill Irwin here from Town of Bakersfield.
All from Bakersfield.
Berkshire. Enosburg Falls. Enosburg Town. Fairfax.
Barbara Murphy for Fairfax.
Sarah Hyde, Fairfax.
Fairfield.
Chuck Viterber, Fairfield.
Letcher.
Rory Rupel, Fletcher.
Franklin.
Yvonne Dandaran.
Georgia.
Carl Rosenquist, Georgia.
Kirk Waite.
Grand Isle.
Barclay Morris from Grand Isle. And
Howard Demise from Grand Isle.
Isle of Mont. Oh, excuse me, Highgate.
Jack Belkey, Highgate.
Isle of Mont. Montgomery. North Hero.
Andy Alling, North Hero.
Richford. Sheldon. St. Albans City.
Chip
Elizabeth
Sawyer
Nance.
from the city of St. Albans.
Elizabeth Nance, City of St. Albans.
St. Albans Town.
Megan Sherlin, St. Albans Town.
South Hero.
Bob Bierman.
And Peter Seymour. Swanton Town.
Harold Garrett.
Nicole Draper.
And Swanton Village.
Heidi Bridge, Valenta.
Okay, Catherine, do you want to handle the staff?
Sure. Before we do that, Peter, I will let you know it looks like Josh Grims has joined, and Josh is a recently appointed member from the town of Berkshire.
Oh, great.
Yay.
Yeah, good evening. Hello. Thank you.
And so I am Catherine Dimitrick. I'm the executive director. I'll turn it over to Dean.
Good evening, everybody. Dean Pierce, Senior Planner, staff.
And who else? Go
Bethany
ahead.
Rivers, Assistant Director, and I'm passing it to Kyle, who I think is on the line.
Good evening, Kyle Grenier, Transportation Planner. And I'm just seeing the staff member I see next. Kathy Lavoie.
Kathy Lavoie, Special Projects.
And it looks like Emily.
Emily Clough, Regional Planner. I think I'm the last staff
I
here.
think so too.
Great. Well, we've got a full agenda. We've got a presentation on Fairfax. We're going to be addressing bylaw amendments in the process, considering approval of 2 municipal plans and 5 energy determinations, compliance determinations, and review of NRPC's accomplishments and individual staff contributions over the last year. So it looks like we've got a full
Good evening. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. I'll see if I can move the bar so I can turn it to presenter mode. And all right. Good
Great.
evening and thank you. I'll try and take you through this sort of short and quick. We have a lot going on. I'm really pleased. So thank you for the opportunity. I'll start by sort of the map of Fairfax, just where we are. I drew a big orange circle around our village area, which is at the center. But I think one of the things that I'll sort of touch on at this point is one of the first things I noticed when I came to work in Fairfax was our road geography and relation to the streams. And they all follow streams. So sitting here again on a rainy flood watch December evening, this is where we were last December. And so you have your projects of where you plan to be, but unfortunately, we had the July flood and also a December flood. We had two declared disasters happen within 6 months within the past year in Fairfax. Being in Franklin County, but touching Lamoille, we did not qualify for the federal disaster relief that our people across the river did. Luckily, we didn't have that level of disaster. But these were some huge setbacks. This is part of Fletcher Road that caved in that was fixed this past spring fully. We're now in the waiting money back on phase. So I think there's a story in Vermont Digger today about how this is impacting municipalities and the continued flood relief. But I think worth sort of stopping here to say we have a great crew, we have a great community, and I think we've really pulled together around these things. And this is also my touch point for thank you to regional planning because they're working on our hazard mitigation plan for us, which will help us get us to that highest level that we can for ERAF reimbursement. So a few of the projects that we have planned that we're working on, Rood Mill Bridge is actually under construction this week. We got a Vermont VTrans projects for structures for that to help out. So hopefully by the end of the week, we'll finally get Rood Mill up and running. We went down to one lane, not a full closure. We're under construction in our fire department. We're doing an addition. The steel should arrive, I've heard December 23rd. I'm not sure if Santa himself is bringing it, but it's going to add on an extra bay where you can see down at the very end of the building, the lift is located. And we've already started to put in the new doors. It's been a slow project, but that's moving. Everything in Fairfax seems to be under construction right now, especially if it's anything that has to do with indoor public space. You have in the middle our community center. We have the steeple off of it right now. It will be returning this winter. And then we'll be starting all the interior work to really make our community center a lot more functional for different events and spaces. The voters approved addition, not a town project, but worth noting to Bellows Free Academy on Hunt Street, which is another huge project that has impacted our library and its library services. Our library just moved in after having sort of evacuate to a commercial space in Georgia earlier this year. So we're happy to have them back actually in Fairfax. They have, and Barbara could chime in with the different challenges that they've faced. And I'll touch on one of the other projects, which is to come. We finally got through right of way on our Main Street sidewalk project. And so we're moving forward. I don't know if we're going to be in time for construction for this coming spring season, but it's going to take our sidewalk and extend it north from where it terminates up to the town offices, which will be huge, and have a crosswalk as well. So some very good projects that we have on the way. And I should note that the fire department and BFA are both bond projects. I said thanked VTrans for Rood Mill Bridge. It is also a TAP grant through VTrans for the sidewalk. And the community center, we have a benefactor, the Bellows family, which has stepped forward and is generously donating funds to assist with the completion of the work there. Some other things that aren't projects, but they're fun and they are regulations. I know fun and regulations don't always fit in the same sense, but we just completed our bylaw modernization project this past spring. Yay! And that was years in coming. It started with a great project back in 2020, which was a growth study for Fairfax, sort of going through where we might want to see additional density in the future. It was great to have that as a foundation to work with the consultants. Amber Soder, who was on this board, who's our zoning administrator, was really helpful with the planning commission, sort of walking them through and thinking and realigning all of our regulations and our map. And so that's sort of front and center there is our new zoning map, which was adopted this past June. At the same time, we had another MPG, municipal planning grant project to adopt an official map. And the idea with the official map is you lay out where you want to see bike ped connections, where you want to see additional new roads and new parks. And as development occurs, you can ask for those rights of ways. You can say, could you bend the design to make that street connection? So it sort of helps you think through the sort of future as we grow, where we want to see things, where we want to see those connections. And as development occurs, try and gradually get those connections. So that was very exciting to get done too. And then the last sort of piece, which sort of ties into all of when you're trying to envision where you want to see growth in the future, how you want to see it, is definitely that infrastructure piece. And we updated our road standards this past summer as well, the public works standards and specifications, and updated our road adoption policy to sort of think through when we want things to be public or when we want things to be private. And I think there's one more thing on this slide that I wanted to touch base on, which was, the waiver policy, which is not everything falls within a standard. You have to allow for an outlet, and rather than having a board sort of subjectively determine when you would want to reduce a width on a road, that's going to be something that our public works folks are going to offer guidance on and some specific criteria around it. We also updated our impact fee ordinance this past spring to try and fund some of these different projects better, and updated our capital budget program as well. Also exciting, we have some infrastructure projects planned. So we have congressionally directed spending from Welch's office to upgrade our wastewater treatment facility. That goes hand in glove with a plan to look for an additional well. We have a small utility that services the village that has been on a self-imposed moratorium for the past 20 years because we're at capacity in terms of water. There have been various attempts to try and look for wells, and we are using our ARPA funds. Been working with a property owner. We had 4 or 5 different sites that we had identified. We will be drilling a test well in January on a site on the other side of the village, and hopefully seeing if it is possible to produce additional water. If it's possible to produce additional water, the wastewater project takes on a different sort of scope in terms of just not maintaining what we have, but also the possibility of growing. This is very important to some of the density that we were looking at as part of our zoning bylaw modernization, and that our village is an area that we do not have a density cap on necessarily per se. And so that is meaningless without the infrastructure to be able to support it. So we're hopeful that we will be able to identify and proceed with the infrastructure necessary to support that additional density and housing. And then I think I'll end on a fun note, which is some of the communication stuff that we're doing. So with so many things that we're doing, and we have some great things going on, sometimes it's just getting the message out and making the connections. And over the past year, I think the select board has really put this sort of front and center for us, is that sort of community building and communications piece. So this past year, we adopted a communications plan and policy that sort of lays out how we want to communicate things, how we want to receive communication, provide communication. We have a Fairfax newsletter that we put online. We send out an email. We make paper copies. We distribute at convenience stores and at the library to different folks. And the most exciting thing too, for some municipal geeks, is the budget videos that we're doing. So we have our rec director, who's always peppy and just a great dynamic person, and the vice chair of our board sitting down and sort of doing sort of a coffee talk around budget. And we just released our second one this week, and we have a YouTube channel that we started up to try and get information out. More exciting too is tomorrow morning we've started a weekly coffee hour since Erica's closed. It was really the only place for people to go and grab a cup of coffee and talk with each other in town. We started opening up the town hall once a week, 9 a.m. on Thursdays. All comers come grab a cup of coffee, conversation, just as a way of building community, which has been really tough with all of our different inside areas under construction. You don't have as many opportunities for those sort of community connections, which is that sort of most important piece of planning in a community. And so thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to answer questions, but just we have a lot of great things going on and happy to share them.
Questions?
Hey, Peter, I'm desperately searching for the raise the hand option on Zoom.
Go ahead.
So, Sarah, given the sort of uncertainty with the political climate, where's the congressionally directed spending request? Is that something you have obligated? Is that in hand? Can you sort of speak to that a little bit?
So we've been awarded it. And the interesting thing that after working with federal grants, congressional directed spending is a lot different. So they say that you have it, but then you have to apply for it. And in order to apply for it, you need to get the engineering done first. So we have a forgivable loan from the state through the DSRF. I'm losing a letter there, DSWRF, to move into the final design, so that then we can go back and say, these are the specific costs to get the congressionally directed spending. And I believe that a lot of the congressionally directed spending is really more sort of on the backside, like you have to be out the money first. So I've heard concerns from people that with the new administration, there might be some uncertainty, but this is something that we have not been offered any facts or hard evidence will be an issue. So I think we're remaining hopeful and proceeding ahead and following the trajectory that we have been endeavoring on until we're told otherwise.
I don't know what your experience is, Sarah, but I have to say that with the ARPA deadlines coming up and engineering resources around the state getting more and more tied up, I think it's getting increasingly stressful to get all of the due diligence and designs and so on done on these various projects in time to have them built by the August 26th deadline.
Hey, Peter, Bill Irwin here.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you, Sarah. This was really great. And I want to acknowledge that this was put into the agenda because of the survey that was conducted recently that asked all of you what would be useful in our meetings. And I think it's fantastic for us to hear what's going on in the other communities. It's going to help me as Planning Commission Chair in Bakersfield. And so it's really great to hear this, and nice way to start this series off, Sarah. Thank you.
Any other thoughts, comments? Thank you very much, Sarah. That's great.
Welcome. I will say too, the one project that I forgot to say, and you hit the nail on the head about the engineering delays, is we just got very excited within the past 24 hours, the final design for the BFA East Stormwater Project, which is a QUISP Philomoil, and another grant project, which is going to be on the front lawn of BFA. So very excited to have that done because that was part of our Stormwater Master Plan that Regional Planning helped with a few years ago. And so hopefully that will allow us to move forward with implementing on that. So thank you. I just so many projects, I wanted to touch on that. So thank you.
Sarah, clarification. What, it was the BFA, what project?
So BFA East, so the stormwater master plan identified two of the top five as being actually on Bellows Free Academy Fairfax land. The west one is actually under construction. I believe it's almost complete. The east one is now through final design. So it's great to be chipping away at some of those things on the stormwater master plan.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are not any other questions or comments, we'll move on to the minutes. And I'd entertain any suggested adjustments and then a motion. Anyone have any suggested changes? Come on, Elizabeth.
I'm a poor state employee.
Okay, hearing no changes, is there a motion to approve them?
I would
So
make a
moved.
motion to approve the minutes. Barbara Murphy.
Second?
I'll
Second.
Who was,
Okay.
who was the second?
I think
You like
Carl was
Carl.
one I heard. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay. Now we move on to the commission reports. And the written reports are in the briefing materials. And so we'll start out with finance and operations. Kirk, anything to add?
No, we did meet, and as the report says, reviewed the early draft of a capital budget for the building and other assets. Also had some discussions around what may or may not be considered a capital budget item. We also plan to meet in January to review the fiscal year 24 audit. So we're looking forward to that.
Okay. Personnel, Bob?
Personnel did not meet.
Okay. Executive committee, nothing to add from what's in the briefing materials. We spent a lot of time on the bylaws amendments that we'll be getting to later in the meeting. Project review, Harold?
We met and reviewed one project in Alberg, and found that it was in compliance. It was just in that 4,000 or 4,200 square feet addition to a building, and it had no significant impact on. So it doesn't need any action on it, and we approved it.
Okay, TAC, also Harold, I guess.
We did not meet.
Okay, Brownfields committee, Megan?
Hi, I have nothing else to add beyond what was in the report.
Regional plan and policy, Lori?
Yeah, that's a very good summary in the report too. We do, though, I think our meeting we did schedule it for January 8th. Okay. It was our next meeting, and then we'll move forward with the next thing in the schedule.
Vermont Economic Progress Council, Barbara?
The report in the handout was accurate, but there is another meeting tomorrow morning that I will zoom in on to at least witness part of it. We don't have any projects in the region.
Green Mountain Transit, Bob?
We continued to discuss the potential changes to routes and reductions to try to balance the budget. We'll hear about more of that in the future. But anyway, it's kind of trying to bring the service into a right size for what we can afford.
Getting some press. Healthy Roots Advisory Committee, Marietta?
I have nothing to add.
Northwest Vermont Regional Foundation, Kirk?
We did meet. We had an election of officers and elected the same slate of officers as were already in position, so no changes there. We also spent some time reviewing our bylaws to see if any changes are needed.
Okay, and finally, office staff, anything?
I don't have
Okay,
anything to add versus what's already in there.
okay. So then we come to the next item, which is the bylaw changes. And we've started a process to consider amendments to the bylaws. There was an ad hoc committee that included Barbara Murphy, Kirk Waite, Yvonne Dander, and Bill Irwin and me to recommend proposed changes. They were submitted to the executive committee, and at its last meeting, the executive committee approved those changes for consideration by the full commission. And that starts a 21-day comment period for any commissioners who want to provide comments on the proposed changes. And then after that period is over, it'll go back to the executive committee to consider any additional changes, and then finally to be considered at the January meeting. Have I got that right, Catherine? Good.
That was exactly right.
So I don't know if anyone wants to provide any thoughts today, or just it's in the briefing materials. So you can also feel free to send in comments. They're not a huge number of them, but there are a lot of miscellaneous stuff, bringing it up to current practice.
I think the biggest change in terms of there are two big changes in terms of structure of NRPC, and one is that it does combine the Municipal Plan Review Committee with the Regional Plan and Policy Committee. So it takes a committee that was separate outside of the bylaws and takes those functions and puts it in one of the standing committees. And the other structural change is that it does allow the board to appoint members to committees who aren't NRPC board members, provided that board members still constitute a majority of the committee. So it gives some flexibility to add some outside voices to some of the standing committees if the board chooses to do that in the future. And like Peter said, the rest are pretty much housekeeping and clarification changes.
Any other thoughts?
Peter?
Yeah.
If I may.
Harold.
I'd like to give kudos to the committee that upgraded, clarified some matters. I think you guys did a great job, so thank you.
I think Chip's hand is up, Peter.
Oh yeah, Chip. Sorry, Chip. Go ahead.
I just wondering if we could hear more about the decision to combine the regional plan and municipal plan committees rather than just adding the municipal plan committee to the bylaws. I might have missed a conversation on that.
So I can talk a little bit about some, and Sarah, I don't know if you want to speak to it a bit, or Lori as chairs of the two committees that we're talking about. The general idea is that the regional plan and the policy committee has work to do around the regional plan updates, and then beyond that is a relatively dormant committee. And the municipal plan review committee is a committee that meets as needed and sometimes can have long stretches with no plans, and sometimes can be really busy, like you'll see on this month's agenda. And so because they talk about similar topics, looking at planning and considering municipal planning and regional planning together, it seemed to make sense both from a function and topical perspective to combine those. And then frankly, we've been struggling with finding enough committee members lately because people's schedules are so busy. And that was another way we thought of utilizing a slightly larger committee and taking advantage of the folks who are available to volunteer. And Sarah and Lori, I don't know if you want to add more to that.
I think I'll sort of add on it too is, yes, I think that we were a small but mighty committee of three, and we have a lot of plans that we're reviewing. And I think the idea to join forces too with the pending well, no, not possible, the pending revisions that will be needed to the regional plan. I think we have a very good plan of how we can sort of divvy up the workload too. Many hands that make light work, and it makes sense.
Okay,
My
look forward to
concern
seeing it.
was, my concern was frankly how Sarah felt about it, because they had worked independently, and that was my question. Is that something that made sense to her and to Megan? Megan, are you on there too? So I hadn't heard, I spaced on the last executive committee meeting. So sorry, Sarah, I didn't get to ask you that then. But if you think we can work it out and that it will be, as you said, there'll be more people to spread the work around when it does come up, then I think I don't have any objection.
Carl?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering, I know I didn't see on the agenda, of course, Georgia Town Plan is in your organization for review, and Rita had made some verbal comments after our presentation. On Monday, we have our second public meeting, after which we were planning on adopting our plan. But at the moment, I have no written comments to share with our select board for possible changes from the regional planning commission. So I don't know exactly how to address that. I thought Rita said she was going to send some written comments in. So if we could get them by the end of the week, that would be very useful, because as they say, we're meeting on Monday for our second public comment period, and then we're going to presumably adopt the plan.
Greta is sending in written comments, I believe.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I can speak to that now if that would be helpful, although it's not really the.
Oh,
or
Greta,
can
did I
speak to
say?
you.
I'm sorry. I said Rita instead of my.
Yeah, no worries. I've been coordinating with the zoning administrator, and I can maybe make sense to address. Do you want me to address or respond right now, Peter?
Sure.
Or we can talk about it later. It's more of a committee update, as opposed to specific to the bylaw.
Okay, you're right. I maybe brought this up at the wrong time, but it sounded like you were talking about putting two committees together to review
Yeah.
town. That's the way I understood.
I will happily. It is on our radar. We were definitely planning to provide comments on Monday, and I can follow up with you with more detail either later in the agenda or outside the meeting.
So I thought that comments had been provided at the first public meeting with the select board, no?
Well, there had been some comments, right, from the public that.
No, I meant from the planning commission. I by my mistake or not, I was under the impression that the select board was provided with comments at their last select board meeting. I was unable.
I provided verbal comments, and I asked if they would like written comments, and I was not told that that was necessary.
Okay,
so I provided comments openly at the public meeting verbally.
That's correct. No, I understand. And then I thought you were going to follow it up with some of those things in writing, just so we.
I had been coordinating with the zoning administrator and was told that that was not necessary, and was forwarded a draft that had already incorporated changes from the verbal comments that were made.
Okay, and that seemed adequate then, what we gave you as reaction to your comments was.
I'm not going to make a final call right now, but we do plan on following up with some additional comments.
So, but we don't know what those comments are before our meeting on Monday night. Is that right? Okay.
I'm happy to provide some written comments prior to Monday night. I was planning on doing it verbally again.
Okay. Thank you, Greta. Sorry if I confused the issue here, but I maybe I was speaking out of turn. I thought I just wanted to make sure we had as much input as possible before our meeting on Monday. Thank
I
you.
will say while we're on this, that, and I have communicated this a few times to the community, that the municipal planning grant deadline is, or excuse me, the deadline for being eligible for a municipal planning grant is December 31st for having a regionally approved plan. So if the select board could wait until the January meeting to adopt their plan, they would then be eligible to apply for a municipal planning grant, because we're not going to have completed the regional approval by the December 31st deadline. It's just sort of a timing issue. It's one of those timing issues, nothing on the part of Georgia, just happens to be that way this year. But so you can still have your hearing, but if you were to wait till January to do the adopt, then you will still have a regionally approved plan by the December 31st deadline. I'll follow up on that as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe
hey,
you
thank
two
you,
can-
Greta. That's good information to have. So, because I thought we were going to approve it after the hearing, unless there were some very substantive changes or whatever. So, I will suggest to them that we would hold off till January. That's your recommendation, right?
That's my recommendation, because then if you do decide you have a municipal planning grant project, you'll be able to move forward with that.
Based on
Thank
the
you.
current approval of the current plan.
Correct.
I'm sorry, Kirk, what was that?
Because you have a currently approved plan, so you can apply for the grant based on your already approved plan.
Okay. All right, but she's saying if we wait till January, then we'd be able to submit for a grant within the new
Correct.
plan? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on bylaw changes?
So I think, to speak to combining the two, there was a fair amount of discussion, and I think having talked to people who were on those committees, there was the thought that the skills are very similar, right? So the people who spend a lot of time writing and working with staff to write the regional plan then uses that knowledge of that regional plan to review the municipal plans. And I think as we talked, it just seemed like the skill set was overlapping. Or knowledge set, I guess, better than skill set. The knowledge set was very overlapping.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts on the bylaws changes? Again, comments are due in 21 days, and then it'll go to the executive committee and finally back to the full board, hopefully at the January meeting. Next
And you
up-
can, if it's easier for you to call me with comments, you can do that too. You don't have to email them or send them in writing or anything formal. You can just give me a call.
Next up is approval of the regional municipal plans and energy determinations. And Sarah, I guess you're on the hook again on that.
Yes. And so there are a lot of them. Get to. We have, do we want to take these as a slate or do we want to take them one at a time? I'm open for thoughts on these. But we have approval for Isle of Mont. So kudos to Isle of Mont for their first plan ever. It's great to see that back. We have one for Sheldon. And I think, do we have one more besides Sheldon? Or is it just Isle of Mont and Sheldon this time, Greta?
That's
Just Isle of Mont and Sheldon. Alberg
Okay.
wasn't able to get their plan ready in time.
Got it. More in the wings.
For the motions themselves, I think you can do it in 3 votes. The first would be to approve the 2 plans, and the second would be confirmation of those 2 towns. And then the third vote would be the energy determination for all the towns. So if you want to do fewer votes, I think you can organize it that way. And I tried to set up the agenda to make it easier to follow that way too.
Great. I think there's a question from Carl. He had his
Yeah,
hand
thank you
raised.
again. When you say the energy determination, is this something that is contained within each plan? Is that what my understanding is, or what? You were saying it was like separate things. There's the plan and then the energy determination. So being fairly new to this organization, what is the energy determination, I guess? Can I ask that question? Can somebody explain that?
Sarah, do you want to take it as the committee chair, or do you want?
Sure. So it's not required to ask for determination for energy, but it's something additional that you can, in which case it gives more deference to your community in terms of energy siting. I don't know if that's a quick and very
I
succinct
think that was
way.
a good explanation. So towns that do what's called enhanced energy planning, so you have an energy plan that's a little bit that has more requirements than the normal part of a typical municipal plan. If you do that extra energy planning, we have the ability to review that and make sure it meets state statute and give you that positive determination. And then your plan has greater weight in Public Utility Commission proceedings.
I don't really know at this point whether our plan had an energy plan in it, so.
You didn't do the
I'll have to
enhanced
study
energy
that.
plan?
Okay. What's that?
But the Georgia does not have an enhanced energy plan right now, but it was identified as something that the town wants to do as an amendment or subsequent project.
Thank you, Greta.
It's been great because I think what a lot of towns are doing is pulling from that great information that the regional plan provides. And really to get the enhanced level, your community just really has to say how they're going to contribute towards it. So it's
Say that again. I'm
I
sorry,
think
Sarah.
it's I think been great to see a lot of communities are pulling from the regional plan provides a lot of the great information, and to get the enhanced level, it really is the individual community just needing to state how they're going to try and meet their proportional share of that regional energy plan, what they're going to do to sort of chip in to it.
Thank you.
In essence, it's just like the regional plan energy component getting approved by the state, just one level down.
So we have two plans to present to you for confirmation. I think both were great plans. Isle of Mott was their first one, so we had to send it back, ask for a little bit more in education. They really did that. We recommend both without any hesitation or caveats for approval by the board tonight.
You want to cover Sheldon as well before we take the first vote? Oh, I'm sorry, Sylvia, go ahead.
I wanted to give, so I represent Isle of Mott, and I wanted to give a huge shout out to Emily. She was incredible shepherding us through this process, extraordinarily knowledgeable. She answered everybody's questions. She worked with our chair, Carmine. I'm on the planning commission, so I witnessed it personally. It was just wonderful. And I truly want to acknowledge all her help because we couldn't have done it without her.
Thanks, Sylvia.
Hi, Peter, this is Bill. I would be willing to make a motion relative to the Isle of Mott and Sheldon municipal plans. If you're ready for that, I would move that we approve the Isle of Mott and Sheldon, Vermont municipal plans as submitted and reviewed this night of 11 December 2024.
There's
I'll
a
second
second.
that, Peter.
I second.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
I'm sorry, clarification on who seconded it. Peter?
I think I did.
Yes.
Howard?
Howard.
Thank you.
Any abstentions? The motion passes. 1 out of 3.
And so
Somebody's got
now
some
that
background on, music
So
on.
now
There we
that
go.
Sheldon and Isle Lamont have approved plans, they meet the final criteria for being what's called confirmed by the Regional Planning Commission. So in order to be confirmed, you have to have a municipal plan that's approved by the RPC, which you just did. You have to contribute funding to local planning, and you have to be participating in regional planning in some way. And both communities meet that, and so they are eligible to be confirmed by this board. And once confirmed, they can apply for municipal planning grants and do a whole bunch of other things.
I would offer that motion to confirm both Sheldon and Isle Lamont.
And Nicole Dripper Swanton would second that.
Any further discussion?
Just Bill Irwin here to say it's really great that Isle Lamont has joined the community here. Really appreciate that turn and the support of the Regional Planning Commission in helping, because it's a big job, and never look further than us if you need to for help.
Couldn't have done it without Emily.
Yeah, one example of the great work that NRPC does. Okay, I think we've had a motion and a second and ready for a vote. All those in favor of confirmation, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? 2 out of 3. Now the energy compliance.
So we would like to offer, now that Sheldon and Isle Lamont have made it across the finish line, as well as Montgomery, Highgate, and South Hero.
Any discussion?
I was just wondering if you could describe what the towns are doing to demonstrate their energy compliance relative to this particular motion.
Each one, or
just in general, what is required to, what is the bar that's set there for a municipality to demonstrate this?
so I think just in general, there's a target number of what each community has for their energy needs and how they're going to move towards sustainability. And so part of it, and Greta, feel free to jump in, but
I can jump in. I'm not going to go. There are a whole series of standards for energy compliance, and it's a long checklist. And I'd probably even defer to Emily Clough to be able to summarize some of those. She's our in-house energy guru here. But we also looked that the plan is consistent with state energy policy and includes an energy element that's similar to what is required in Title 24 for all plans, that they're confirmed and regionally approved otherwise. But there are a whole host of standards that are created by the Department of Public Service that we need to look and make sure that each energy plan includes, including a whole host of maps relating to target energy areas and uses. Feel free to add on to that, Emily.
Yes, there's 13 criteria that they have to meet. There's data and targets that are based off municipalized versions of the regional energy plan targets. This is the sort of last series of plans that were done with the old regional targets in mind, and all plans from this point forward I believe there might be one or two that were in the process beforehand, but all plans that are starting now will be using the new regional energy plan targets. That is a bit of a change. But yes, looking at the data mapping, as Greta mentioned, and equity.
Thanks, Greta, Emily, for that clarification, and you as well, Sarah. Thank you.
Okay, Any further comments before we go to a vote? If not, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make
I'll
the
make that
motion.
motion. It's Elizabeth.
Okay, Elizabeth makes a motion, second.
Barbara, second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Great job. Great progress. Thank you very much, Sarah. The next item is to hear Catherine talk about the year in review for the NRPC. And before she does, I just want to acknowledge how productive and important the work of the NRPC is. The monthly staff reports that we get in our briefing materials and the annual reports that NRPC sends to each of our municipalities make clear that it is extremely busy and it is moving the needle in a lot of areas. And this work is the key element in taking the directives from the legislature and turning them into action. The state is under increasing stress in a variety of areas, and NRP's work is critical to our future. So thank you to all of you and on the staff. And I'll turn it over to Catherine. You're on mute.
You're muted. Okay.
And there we go. Thank you for your patience. So I'm going to go through just a brief summary of some of our accomplishments of the year, and then I'm going to turn it over to the rest of the staff and just have them hit one key thing that they just wanted to highlight that they feel particularly great about that they worked on this year. So regional planning commissions generally, we have a few newer board members, so I wanted to take a step back a little bit. Regional planning commissions are political subdivisions of the state of Vermont, and we are, in the absence of county government, we really serve as that connecting place between municipal government, state government, and federal government. We're able to both help municipalities with their local projects as well as do projects of regional significance and multi-municipal significance that really benefit our communities, the people who live here, and the state of Vermont as a whole. One of the areas that we pay close attention to is state policy, and we participate in state policy at many levels to make sure that legislative changes, state agency policies, and programs, to the extent we can, we try to make sure that they really meet the needs of our communities. And one example of that in the past legislative session is we did spend a lot of time participating in Act 181, which made broad changes to the state designation program, Act 250, and regional plans. And although we weren't in charge, so we didn't get everything that would have been great for our region, I think our participation really made the bill serve our communities better than if we had not participated. So we're able to serve as the voice for our communities in the region, within the State House, and with state agencies. And I think that's a really beneficial thing that we don't talk about a lot, but I think makes a real difference for our region. We focus a lot on regional planning and energy planning. We've talked about that recently, just earlier in the agenda. So we do adopt a regional plan that is valid for 8 years. We're going to be embarking on a new regional plan update starting in 2025, but we did recently adopt a brand new regional plan. And then last year, our key highlight that we did mention earlier is that you as the board adopted a new energy plan, and that did receive a positive determination from the Department of Public Service. And that means that when there are utility applications through the Public Utilities Commission, our regional plan will get greater weight. And so the voice of the region will have a bigger say in the permitting process. And that's a great benefit. And that also gives us the ability to approve local plans, which we just did tonight. NRPC does work in housing. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to just make housing be built and appear, because that would be great, because we all know that we are really struggling with housing right now. But what we can do is we can work on programs and projects that move the needle a little bit. And one of those is Housing for All. It's a program that we have served as the host organization for. It's a collaboration between NRPC, Franklin County Industrial Development, several municipalities, and other regional organizations in Franklin and Grand Isle counties. And it was paid for through funding from the state of Vermont and the Boston Federal Reserve. We've done a number of projects and programs, all with the aim of increasing the quality and the quantity of housing in the region. One recent example in this past year is we launched a pilot project for duplexes and accessory dwelling units. And this pilot project provided mini grants and technical assistance to homeowners who are interested in adding another dwelling unit as part of their home. And through that, we hope to not only increase the number of dwelling units through this small pilot, but also learn about where there might be some problems, some challenges, some hurdles that exist to adding accessory dwelling units or duplexes, and use that as a policy lever to talk with state agencies and others about things that might be changed to streamline the process. We're not in the economic development business per se, but the work that we do really lays the groundwork for successful economic development. So the work that we do with our communities to build strong communities, to help support housing, to do all those, to work in the rail trail, all of those support economic development within the region. One thing that we do in particular is Northwest Regional Planning Commission has, for the last 10 years, served as the host for the Northern Vermont Economic Development District. That is a federally designated development zone that serves the 6 northern counties of Vermont. We were in danger of losing that at one point, but NRPC stepped in, dedicated some resources to rebuild that district and get active status again at the federal level. Because of that, we're able to access federal infrastructure grants. One that was before Sarah's time in Fairfax paid for a water line up to the Run Amok facility. And so it's projects like that that are able to be funded because we maintain this Northern Vermont Economic Development District. Another great example of supporting economic development is the work we do in infrastructure. And right now we're providing project management assistance to 2 communities, Highgate and South Hero, as they move forward with wastewater facility projects with ARPA funds. And that is one role that we serve to be an added capacity for municipalities to be able to move forward on projects like this. We have a very robust brownfields program. Our brownfields program has gotten many millions of dollars from the EPA to grant and loan to properties to assess and clean up potential and real contamination. In FY24, we had 7 communities able to access these funds, and 11 sites were assessed or began the cleanup process because of our grant program. 2 great examples of that are Highgate and Swanton Village. So in Highgate, we were able to fund a corrective action plan, which is basically the plan for cleaning up the property for the Highgate Village Core project, which is helping to pave the way for Cathedral Square to develop senior housing. And then the Village of Swanton, we've been working with them on 6 River Street and helping to fund the cleanup of that property. And that is going to tentatively have a 3-unit Habitat for Humanity project. So those are 2 examples of the many sites that we've been able to work on in the region because of this brownfields program. Clean water funding has been a really increasing role that we've played over the past 3 years. We have been named the clean water service provider for the Missisquoi and Lamoille basins. And so through that role, the state of Vermont funnels clean water project funding through NRPC, and we work with basin water quality councils to help us target and identify and prioritize projects to be funded with that money. And in FY24, we contracted for 22 projects, 11 in the Lamoille Basin and 11 in the Missisquoi Basin. And when built, that will reduce phosphorus by over 320 kilograms, helping Vermont to meet its target for phosphorus reduction. We do a lot of work with our towns on local planning and zoning. So all but one of our towns got some form of assistance with planning and zoning in the past year, whether it's through the bylaw and modernization projects or through technical assistance through zoning with their zoning administrators or your DRBs. Northwest Regional Planning Commission also serves as a zoning administrator for 2 communities, Sheldon and North Hero, and we do that under a municipal services contract. And then 2 things that we wanted to just highlight. One that we just did, that you just did with your vote. Isle of Lamont adopted their first municipal plan, and then you just granted it approval and confirmation. And with that, we now have 100% of our municipalities actively planning. There may be at some given time 1 or 2 whose plans may have expired in between drafting, but we have 100% of our communities, and that is a huge accomplishment, I think, and I think is a real reflection of the work that many of you do in your communities, and it's really great to be able to say that now. It makes me very happy. So congratulations, Isle of Lamont and all of the others for keeping up the good planning. Addition to that, we had 5 municipalities that received assistance from NRPC through a bylaw modernization grant funded by the state. The bylaw modernization grant main focus is to look at local regulatory barriers to housing, identify what those might be, and make sure that they are eliminated in places where you want to see new housing growth. So those 2 are really great projects to highlight in this area that we work in. We maintain GIS mapping services at NRPC. So we use GIS as an analysis tool, but also a mapping tool. And all of our communities receive some form of mapping assistance in this past year. And one thing that we do for every community in the region every year is we do an updated road atlas where we are able to, we give it to emergency providers and public works folks. It has all of the roads, all the road names, and all of the E91 points. So any new E91 points in the last year are added to these updated maps, and they're available to all of our public works and emergency personnel, and our municipalities really appreciate that service that we provide. We are involved in transportation planning and project development, and we do a lot of work in this area, whether it's traffic counts or culvert and road erosion inventories or municipal project management. We are out there working in our communities. As you can see, every single one of our communities receives some form of technical assistance in transportation in FY24. And we're really excited about an upcoming grant that we're going to be working on. We received it last year unofficially, but we were able to sign all the paperwork this year and get it officially, a grant from the EPA on active transportation. And this grant is going to give capacity and technical resources to move active transportation plans in places where grants applications haven't been successful or the municipalities haven't had the capacity to move these projects forward. And so more to come on that, but we're really excited about what we're going to be able to do with that project. And then in emergency planning, again, all of our communities receive some form of assistance. We work with our municipalities on the local emergency management plan, which is the cheat sheet that towns use when there's a local disaster. It has all the contact information, who's in charge, the incident command system, etc. And we also do work with the state. We have 3 RPC staff members who are trained to serve in the State Emergency Operations Center. So when there's a larger disaster, the state will call on us and other RPC staff across the state to augment the state staff and serve in the Emergency Operations Center. Bethany did that in FY23. She spent basically the month of July at the State Emergency Operations Center. We also are working with our towns on updating floodplain and river corridor bylaws. And last year, I think the highlight of our year, definitely not only for the work, but also for the fun of it, was working with our communities to help prepare for the total solar eclipse event that happened in April of 2024. And then finally, in energy, in addition to energy planning, and the 3 communities that we worked with to draft energy plans. We also worked on this great project called the Municipal Energy Resilience Program. And this was a statewide project that provided assessment and implementation funds for towns to work on municipally owned buildings. And in our region, 14 communities received energy efficiency evaluations for a total of 28 buildings. And then we helped 13 communities apply for implementation funds. Of those, 8 got a grant for a total of $2.5 million coming to the region in this program to do energy efficiency retrofits in 8 communities for municipally owned buildings. So that was a pretty great result of that project. And then in addition to the program areas we work on, we also have several collaborations that we do. One of them is really an in-house collaboration more than anything. It's the Northwest Vermont Regional Foundation. We do have this as a nonprofit arm of Northwest Regional Planning Commission, so we're able to access funds that are only available to nonprofits. And then the Northern Vermont Economic Development District that we talked about. We also support our communications union district. When it first started, we housed it in the RPC before it was able to stand on its own as an organization. And we continue to provide technical assistance to that union district as they work to build out fiber and broadband across the region. And we also, for a very long time, have been the public entity that's been in charge of managing and promoting the Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail. And we've recently added the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail to that portfolio too. And one great highlight of those collaborations is the new interactive map that we launched that is something that you can use to plan your trip on the Missisquoi or the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. It shows trail-friendly businesses and amenities along the trail within our communities. And then finally, I'll note that none of this would happen without all of you, without all of our staff, and without all of you as board members. And if it's all right with you, Peter, I'll take this opportunity to just hand it over to the rest of the staff to introduce themselves again and make note of something they want to share. And Bethany, do you want to start and then hand it off?
Sure. So Bethany Remmers, and I would say one of the things I wanted to highlight from this past year is that over the last year, I've worked with Amy Adams, our office administrator, to further build redundancy in our financial and bookkeeping processes. And it paid dividends just today as Amy had a tech issue and wasn't able to run payroll. And fortunately, she's been able to cross-train me. And so I was able to step in and run payroll today. So staff on the line, paycheck will be there Friday morning. And kind of related to that, over this past year, continued to work on both trying to centralize and streamline our contract management for the office as we continue to diversify and get more and more grants. And so currently we have an active grant and agreement portfolio of over 50 incoming contracts. And many more that go out the door as well. So made progress on that, but we'll continue to focus in the new year on working on that. And I am going to pass it to Greta.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to highlight, well, Catherine mentioned a few of these projects, but so I'll be somewhat redundant, but I'm going to highlight a few of the projects that I provide project management support to. So they're all municipal, or in one case, a local nonprofit. But so I've provided project management support to local staff and communities to further the ARPA-funded wastewater projects in Highgate and South Hero, and also to the local nonprofit in Alberg for the Alberg Child Care Project. The local nonprofit Alberg Family Clubhouse has worked for over 5 years to get to the point where they just signed a construction contract and are gearing up for a pre-construction contract in the next few weeks. So that's like really exciting news for them, and I'm coordinating. They have several other federal grant sources, so I'm trying to coordinate with them right now to bring a new grant administrator on board to administer all of their federal funding sources. But great news for that project. And then, as everyone knows, wastewater and water supply infrastructures is a critical component to achieving vibrant village centers and affordable housing options in our region and across the state. And so currently I'm navigating a change in personnel in Highgate to keep back with the aggressive ARPA grant deadline. And the project will, looks like it's going to support a 30-unit senior housing projects, which is really exciting for the village of Highgate. And as Catherine noted, the site's also a brownfield site, so I'm working to coordinate with the town and to on corrective action for soil remediation in coordination with their development plan. And then in South Hero, which is in great hands thanks to Peter's leadership, actually, Peter Zamore, I have provided support that led to a change in the scope of their ARPA grant. So the town of South Hero is looking to purchase property for the purpose of designing and developing a community wastewater system. And that rescope allowed the municipality to purchase land or look towards almost purchasing land that would not otherwise be possible, and takes the pressure off of completing construction by the ARPA deadline off the table. So those are a few of the highlights that I've been working on. Lots of projects, management support to our municipalities, which we know have limited capacity and staffing. I will pass it off to Emily Cloft.
Yeah, as Catherine already mentioned, obviously having Ilamont adopt their first town plan was extremely exciting. And I also want to note Montgomery, who finished their town plan sort of at the beginning of this year and then really kept that momentum going, working on a bylaw update and a focus in both of those areas on trying to find where they can support additional housing. I think a really great example of what a community can do when they start to think about the importance of housing in their town. And then finally, I just want to mention working with our energy planner, Marlena, on the regional energy plan update, which was a huge lift, but I was really excited that that was able to be completed. And I can pass it off to Kathy.
Hello, Kathy Lavoie, Special Projects, and basically I help to support the staff in any capacity that they might need me on various projects. So as well as working with municipalities, usually on projects that they have a lack of capacity as well. Just finished up the broadband project in Fletcher and the NBRC grant, and that was a difficult project and lift, but it is complete, and they'll be submitting their final report to NBRC by the end of the month. We also finished up the Brigham Academy Planning Grant for the feasibility for housing and community space. The project right now is looking primarily for a developer to take the project on, but at least we know and the town of Bakersfield understands what the feasibility is for that incredibly historic building. And lastly, you know, we all work on a lot of big projects. One of mine that I've gotten a great level of joy in is a little $20,000 grant going to Franklin for the feasibility study for childcare. And that came up through the BCRD community visit process. And they really did not have any capacity within Franklin to get that grant out within a couple of weeks. And so I was able to jump on board and get the grant written. And to the little community of Franklin, that $20,000 grant is huge. So I'm very excited to work with them on that. Thank you. And I will pass it to Kyle.
Good evening. Again, Kyle Grenier, Transportation. One of the things I wanted to highlight is our recent the recent project that Amy Adams actually wrapped up with rail trails. So the MVRT, LVRT junction in Sheldon received its final alternatives, and the agency has selected one of those, and I have it on a pretty good authority that they are working very hard to secure the funding to make that happen. So really excited to see a real possibility that a trailhead will be built out in Sheldon Junction with many players involved at the table to make a wonderful space for community members, for people passing through, and other future opportunities. Another point I wanted to highlight is that while we do a lot of work at NRPC on partnering with state and municipality partners, we also get the opportunity from time to time to work to focus and counsel and give advice on at the national level. I was appointed to represent the state of Vermont for the NATO, which is the National Association of Development Organizations, on their RPO America Council of Peers. And that essentially is a group of people who represent rural planning and transportation. So we get the opportunity to, as this council, to answer questions, provide feedback from our, little corners of the state and of the nation. And that information goes back to help the folks in the leadership at NATO in their planning and development on what they can make recommendations for at the national level. So there's a lot of really good opportunities that we have, even on a larger scale. And I will pass it over to Dean.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm Dean Pierce. I work mainly on water resources. As Catherine mentioned in her presentation, the Regional Planning Commission is the clean water service provider for 2 river basins. We're the only organization that has the distinction of holding that status for more than one basin. And what that means to be a clean water service provider is essentially we're a funnel for money that's been appropriated by the legislature to help improve water quality in Lake Champlain. There was a slide that said something like 11 in each basin, 22 total. That's correct, although it wasn't, that's to date, that isn't just in 1 year. And those 22 projects, if you perform calculations to determine or to estimate how much phosphorus would be reduced, it amounts to over 300 kilograms. So it's a fairly sizable amount in theory. Only one of those projects is done, but that's something I'm very proud of because we have to start somewhere. And even though it's about 8 kilograms, it's a start and it's in the ground and it's done. And then essentially we can start counting them. The rest of them are really all anticipated amounts of phosphorus reduction. The other thing I would just want to highlight is that in our work in doing this work, we're doing our best to find creative ways to simplify the distribution of funds where we can. We've created a process that makes it very simple to distribute what are called project development funds. We're proud of that, but we can't simplify everything and we just keep chipping away. Sometimes we try and succeed, and other times we try and we fail. The last thing I'll just mention is that I'm proud of the fact that sometimes you just never know when it comes to applying for grants. The commission succeeded on a very short notice seeking funds for work that is related to water quality, doing a particular type of assessment that involves roads. We could make a good case for our skills because we've done this work in the Lake Carmi watershed. And although when I hit send, I didn't really think that we would get it, the Regional Planning Commission got that grant. And so, like I say, you never know unless you ask or try. So I don't know if there's anybody else, Catherine, other than you.
I think that that's it. Then the final thing I just wanted to note is we always take a moment at this annual end of the year meeting to take a note of 5-year accomplishments for board members and staff. And we only had 2 this year to note. One is Howard Damaris. Congratulations on 5 years on the board, Howard. Yay. It seems like
Thank
you've
you.
always been on the
Thank you. It's
board.
been
So
my pleasure. You know, hearing other communities utilizing the services of Northwest Regional Planning, uh, seeing people getting some recognition, it just makes me very proud to be part of the organization. And I'm always happy when the people that help me, staff members, get some respect for all that you guys do. It's awesome. You guys are an invaluable resource to our area, and if we all keep up the good work, we'll only do better. So.
and then the other one I hesitate to note is me, and it's 30 years this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Incredible.
If I
Amazing.
could comment on that, when I was very first on Northwest Regional, Catherine just barely was taking over as the executive director. I think there were 3 full-time employees at the time, and it's just unbelievable how she has nurtured this organization into the really strong planning commission that it is. I think NRPC in a lot of ways is a leader for all the RPCs in the state of Vermont, and a lot of that is because it's all built on Catherine's shoulders. So congratulations on your anniversary, and congratulations on how much you've done to build this into such a super organization.
Catherine, I just want to say also that I've only been on this committee a short time, but over those 30 years, I think that the different boards and things I was on, somehow you always popped up as providing support and just having such a handle. And we're so fortunate to have you. Congratulations on 30 years.
Thank you all. And I would just say that without a great board and a great staff, none of that is possible. So that's the only way that it happens. And so I'll send the thanks back to the board, because knowing that you will always have the support of your board makes it a lot easier to put yourself out there and take chances. So that's been really great.
Great. Well, I think we're coming close to the end. The last item is any commissioner announcements?
Oh, yeah, I have a commissioner question. Catherine, as we get closer to January, are the RPCs or VAPTA aware of any legislative drafts that might be looking at more changes to regional and local planning and zoning?
I haven't seen any. That doesn't mean there aren't any out there. I've seen conversations about potential changes to the 3-acre permit. Some to loosen it up and some to make municipalities take it over. So, the complete opposite ends of the spectrum. And obviously I know which way members of this board would want me to argue for. And then I've seen some potential changes, potentially sponsored by the administration to do related to even further changes for Act 250, but not municipal. So I haven't seen anything yet.
Great. Thanks. It'd be good if they give the locals a break so we could just adjust.
It'd be nice. Yeah. I think 2 years of changes is good. Yeah.
Yep.
Carl?
Yeah, it was with sadness, I attended a memorial for Don Turner.
Yeah.
Town just south of us. It was a great memorial. Probably almost 1,000 people were at that, and 2 governors addressed the crowd. So, but it was too bad. He just turned 60 years old, and then he went way too soon. So I just wanted to make a comment on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Sylvia?
And if I could go back to celebrating Catherine, I'm hoping our summer picnic down on Camp Kilcare will be a celebration of your 30 years, so we can all personally recognize you and thank you in person and enjoy a nice evening of the board. It's always a wonderful time. but well deserved, more than just a Zoom meeting. We're going to celebrate you in 6 months.
Great. Well, if there's nothing else, I hope everyone has a great holiday, and we'll see you all in January. And as Bill Irwin would say, I'll entertain one last motion.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Have a great holiday, everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Good night.
Happy holidays all. Take care.